Hi and welcome to Fast Forward, where we have conversations about living in the future. This is a special Mobile World Congress 2018 edition of Fast Forward. I'm Dan Costa, Editor-in-Chief of PCMag.com, and basically we're just talking to the leaders that are walking around the show floor right now, the leaders and pioneers of the digital revolution. I have one of those leaders with me here today. It is Dilip, Bhatia, the Vice President of Global Marketing at Lenovo. Lenovo is obviously one of the largest manufacturers of laptops and phones in the world. They also may be answering your question the next time you ask Alexa what time it is or to set a timer. Dilip, thanks so much for coming by.
My pleasure.
So here at Mobile World Congress, one of the first things I'm trying to help people understand is how different this show is than a CES or some of the other shows out there. You know, what makes Mobile World Congress different? Why is Lenovo here?
Yeah, I mean, Mobile World Congress has evolved, honestly, from the last couple of years. It used to be very mobile-centric, but now you're seeing across the board everything from data center vendors all the way down to handset vendors, PC vendors. So it has evolved over time. And for Lenovo as a company, we offer everything from device, from pocket, devices in your pocket, all the way to data center. So it just makes so much sense for us to be here.
So you've got one of the products you launched here at the show were new Chromebooks with sort of an education, kids-focused, and ruggedized, yep. Which I don't remember seeing ruggedized Chromebooks before. Obviously makes a ton of sense. Where do you see the market for these new devices?
So we've been shipping Chromebooks now for a while, and the education market is a huge market for us. And we talk to a lot of IT administrators in school systems, and we get direct feedback. In fact, some of the worst notebooks that come into our service centers are from higher ed or from education customers. So we've taken a lot of the learnings. How do you go ruggedized? How do you make sure that the keys don't pop off easily from the keyboard? How do you make sure that the camera module doesn't pop off, right? So we've taken a lot of those learnings, and we realized the kids, they accidentally will drop devices, right? So it just makes so much more sense to make them ruggedized and so that they last longer.
I think Chromebooks were always, their education market was always part of their mission. But I think I've been sort of surprised at just how popular they've been.
Yeah.
Windows PCs are not that expensive anymore, but yet you see education system after education system sort of steering towards Chromebooks. Do you think why, what's the appeal there?
Well, number one, again, it's the simplicity, right? It's a browser. It's all based on the cloud, right? And for us, Lenovo, we offer both Windows-based systems and we offer Chrome-based systems. So it's really a choice that we're offering customers, right? So some people are very comfortable with the Chrome-based offering, and Windows does a great job too, right? But again, the Chrome is the simplicity of just a browser that you can access all the stuff. It's funny, I had an interesting incident. I was talking to my niece, and I said, get this information off the drive, and I meant literally her SSD, and she thought I meant the Google Drive, because they don't understand the concept of a hard drive, right? For them, everything's in the cloud. So that's how, they're just used to everything being on the cloud.
Yeah, it's interesting that word drive means totally different things,
exactly.
Whether you're 40 years old
exactly.
or 14 years old. And it goes again to that perpetual connectivity that when we grew up, we didn't have.
No, we didn't.
You had to have it local.
Yeah, they're always connected, they're always on, right? So it's always there.
And so another product you came out with at the show, a new version of the Yoga 730, processor update. But the interesting thing is that you're incorporating both, interesting for me, you're incorporating both Cortana and Alexa. Yep. So two voice assistants in the same product. How do you see the two of those coexisting?
Yeah, I mean, I personally am bullish on voice, and I think voice is going to be a big factor going forwards, right? I mean, the average human types 40 words per minute, right? But we talk on an average 150 words per minute, right? And so voice just becomes that much more natural. So for us, it was basically giving a choice to customers, right? Some people are very comfortable with Alexa because at home people have the Echo devices, right? I mean, it's very common. I know I get up in the morning and the first thing, hey, Alexa, what's the weather, right? And my kids, will play around with it. So it's giving customers a choice at the end of the day. Cortana does really well in certain areas, and Alexa does well in certain areas. So I mean, and I feel like it just voice makes a lot more sense in PC. So we're starting to put a lot more microphones in there. So even the systems are on standby. So if I can use Alexa at home, if I'm traveling to Barcelona, why can't I talk to my PC and say, hey, what's the weather this morning? And it'll say it's cold as hell in Barcelona. Right?
It was snowing yesterday.
Snowing, right? This is not supposed to be Barcelona weather. So
one of the things that surprises me is Cortana's been built into Windows 10 systems from the get-go, and yet it's Cortana and even all voice systems have been slow to be adopted in the workplace. And I don't quite understand why that was. I almost thought that it would be faster in the workplace and slower in the home. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's also, if you look at office spaces, the age of cubicle is going away. You have a lot more open floor plans and so on. So privacy is something that's becoming rarefied, right? And there's a lot more settings where people are working in team environments, the huddle rooms, and so on. So the workplace transformation is happening. So that's why just the whole, hey, talking loudly in an office environment is probably just not cool, right? Somebody's going to complain and say, hey, stop, right? I'm on a conference call. So maybe that's probably one reason for it, but Cortana certainly has its benefits with the Windows, hey, pull up my file, what am I doing? Hey, what's my next appointment? Certainly has its strengths, and Alexa brings a whole bunch of different skill sets, right, that Cortana doesn't have. So to me, they work very well together.
So how do you see Lenovo fitting into this world of multiple voice assistants in the home and eventually in the workplace? Where does Lenovo fit in? Are you ever going to come up with your own assistant?
No. I don't think so.
That's a very definitive answer. I was not expecting that.
No, I mean, if you look at Google, if you look at Amazon, they're putting significant amount of investment, right? Have we discussed that? Absolutely, right? But when you see the amount of investments the companies are putting behind, why not leverage it? Now, if Lenovo can provide a medium where I ask the answer, and I can leverage the power of multiple voice engines to provide the best answer, why not? That should be what our objective should be, is how do we go help the consumer? It's not really about the voice technology, whether it's Alexa or Cortana. From a Lenovo perspective, how do I provide the best experience for my customer? And the back end could be Alexa, could be Google, could be Cortana.
Yeah, there's also been some challenges in sort of bringing those assistants to non-English speaking countries. And when I travel and I talk about how I use Alexa all the time, I have to remember that this crowd may not have ever used an Alexa device, which seems strange, but how quickly do you think we're going to overcome those language barriers?
I think it's just a matter of time, right? It's just a matter of time. As this technology becomes more prevalent, as Amazon and Google now, I mean, it's really up to them, right? At the end of the day, the more they can get out there in the emerging markets, the quicker it gets out there. But it's just a matter of time.
So one of the statistics that came out last week was that smartphone sales had declined for the first time ever in terms of gross sales in Q4 of last year. Do you think we've reached peak smartphone? I mean, here we are at MWC. Mobile's obviously a huge theme, but have we reached any kind of peak smartphone point the way we have with the PC industry?
I mean, I'm not the resident expert on phones, but I mean, what 2 billion phones? Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty big market out there, and it's still a huge market. I mean, honestly, I mean, if you look at PCs in general, right? PCs are still, we're shipping 260, 270 million units. Tablets, 150 million. So the PC and tablet are dwarfed compared to the smartphone market, but still, it's a big market at the end of the day, no matter how you look at it.
And it's interesting, obviously PC Magazine, we cover more than just PCs. We're invested in the PC space. But all these new innovations, the PC didn't go anywhere. I mean, I'm using a tablet with a keyboard now, but most people travel with their laptop. They work on their laptop during the day. The laptop market is still a very strong market in and of itself.
It is. In fact, the IDC just came out with the numbers for Q4. They actually raised their forecast to 3.2% for this quarter. And for the entire year, from a revenue standpoint overall, it's still relatively flat. It's almost 260, 270 million units. It's still a big number, no matter how you look at it.
And it seems like Lenovo wants to play in all of those different spaces, including the assistant space where you've got a smart speaker that'll work pretty similar to the way the Amazon Echo does.
Yeah, so again, we started with our smart speakers specifically in China. Amazon doesn't have a presence in China, Google doesn't have a presence in China, so there's a void in the marketplace. So, hey, why not partner and go innovate in this space and bring something in the China market? Right, so certainly we will look to innovate where there's gaps in the marketplace, and we can certainly go provide value. Then why not?
What's the coolest thing you've seen here at Mobile World Congress?
Our Google, our Mirage Solo product. I don't know if you guys have played with it, but I still think that's kind of the coolest device out there. I'm being biased, but yeah, that's probably the coolest device out there still.
And it's available for sale? When will people be able to get their hands on it?
It's going to be shipping in Q2. We announced it at CES, but you should see the expression on people's faces when they go to our booth and put those on, and being immersive in that experience is just fantastic.
The VR market was one of the things that a lot of analysts thought was going to really push the PC market forward. It was going to push hardware requirements, push graphics requirements. How is it? What's the experience been? Is it what you expected?
It's still, I would say, still we're in the very early phases of VR. Initially, the content is mostly gaming based, very much consumer focused, but I'm much more bullish on the commercial side in terms of what it can go do. Right today, I still feel where VR, AR is still where when we first came out with the web in 1995. Mm-hmm. That's how I equate VR, AR to be, right? We're very in the early phases. I still believe we need, a human interface, right, where it makes it much easier to be able to help people in their everyday lives. I give the example of the car, right? We all have cell phones for directions for our maps, or we have our dashboards. But when you're driving all the time, do I look at the phone? Do I look at the dashboard? Do I look at the road? It's confusing. In future, every windshield will tell you, point an arrow, hey, you need to be on this road, right? So I'm no longer looking, I'm focused just on the windshield. That's really the future. And some of the cars are already doing that, but to me, in future, every car is gonna have that capability, right? So we're in the very early phases of VR and AR.
It's one of the best AR demonstrations I got was from using Microsoft Hololens back in the day when it was called HoloLens, and it was just wiring a light switch with a Skype person wired in, and then they were just saying, you connect this wire to this wire, they could point to the wires, you won't get electrocuted, and that one use case, when you scale it out, all the things you just don't know how to do, the things you go to YouTube now and you type into YouTube and say, how do I do this? All of that's going to be displayed to you not on a little video screen, but layered over into the real world.
Exactly, right? It's bridging the physical and the digital, right? That's what AR is. I mean, not only is visualizing, but I feel like in future, being able to interact with it, right? So, being able to interact with the machinery or the tool to do something with it, not just visualize it, right? To me, that's the power in future.
Very cool. I want to ask you some of my closing questions I ask everybody who comes on the show. Is there a technology trend that concerns you a great deal or that keeps you up at night?
I think just one of the things, and personally for me, it's just the amount of time our kids are spending time on their devices, right? So just the whole device and work-life balance in terms of, I see my kids themselves, they have phones and the amount of time they're spending on it. So I know Motorola, we've done actually a study, hired a PhD to actually help us. And we are partnering with a company where you can put this app on your phone to measure how much time you're spending. So just the interaction, and again, even things like VR, right? You put it on, but we haven't studied the health effects of it on children, right? And I just saw we had VR demos in our booth, and people are getting a little dizzy even though they just put it on for 5 minutes. So just the health effects of that balance. So that's something that concerns me, and I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in those areas.
Pernilla Johnson from Ericsson was here a couple of days ago, and we asked her the same question. She said that, when you ask parents, 50% of parents think that their kids are addicted to technology, and then when you go into classrooms and you ask the kids, they all say their parents are addicted to technology. So there's a little bit of we're worried about them, they're worried about us.
Yeah, I mean, we did this recent study, and then Gen Z, the Gen Z group, over 50% of them said basically smartphones are their best friends. Now that's concerning, right? When they say a piece of technology is my best friend, right? So that is something that's alarming.
It's also, when we were young, in order to talk to your friends, you'd have to see them in person or call them on the phone. And even then, it was a one-to-one conversation, and and your parents were going to kick you off the phone at some point. Now, they are connecting with all of their friends, and probably a couple hundred people that are not their friends, in real time, 18 hours a day. Literally until they finally pass out in their bedroom, they're contacting and communicating with everybody, and the consequences of that and the effects on the adolescent mind are just not well understood.
Exactly. So those are some things to be concerned about. I think a lot of work needs to be done in that area.
Is there a technology or gadget or service that you use every day that still inspires wonder?
My ThinkPad, right? I'm a ThinkPad fan. Again, I'm being biased over here.
X1?
My ThinkPad X1, right? The ThinkPad X1 Carbon. I feel like we just launched at CES. We came out with a gorgeous HDR panel display, 500 nits. So to me, I use it every day. I'm on it for 8 hours a day. So It's my favorite device.
I also use a ThinkPad X1. It is not the latest version. I think I'm about ready for an upgrade.
There you go.
So I have to put that in a request to IT when I get back.
Absolutely.
So if people want to follow what you're doing online, what Lenovo's doing, how can they find you?
So Dilip Bhatia, my first name and last name on Twitter and on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way.
Great. Dilip, thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you. My pleasure.
That's Fast Forward for today. If you want to get back episodes of this show, you can find them on PCMag.com, and go to PCMag.com to see all of our MWC news. There is a lot of it. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Dan Costa.